back again. Jody MF Keith here with another Legends of Runeterra video. Yes, I'm trying to come out with a Legend of Runeterra video every day. I'm hoping you're enjoying them. I'm reading all the comments. I will reply to every comment. You put a comment down below, I'm replying to it. I'm trying to engage in this community. I'm trying to learn more about this game, and I'm trying to share the knowledge that I accrue and try and soak it in from you guys. So definitely looking forward to the comments down below. This is the first video you've seen. Make sure you check out the other ones. I did an in-depth guide the other day on Deep, but today I want to talk about a topic that doesn't really get covered that much yet. Coverage and content production hasn't really, it's in its infancy here. People are making great content. That's not what I mean. What I'm saying is there's not a lot of content out yet. So I wanted to and I hadn't seen a video about this, but how to build a tournament composition. And what I mean by that is most tournaments are the 3-deck format where you get to ban one of your opponent's decks. I think they call it the Korea format. Don't quote me on that. And then we also have restrictions to where you can only play each region once. Well, with the latest release, we have a 7th region now. Before, you pretty much built the deck. Each deck was 2 regions, or maybe like Mono Damasio was pretty popular. Thanks for the follow. Right in the middle. Thanks for the follow. So we got I didn't even see what that was. Yeah. All right. I don't know what the alert was. Anyway, I'm recording this live on the stream. So basically, that restriction of only being able to play one region amongst all 3 of your decks really plays into how you build your comps. That's like the biggest factor I find when it comes to building decks. So let me give you a good example here. Say I really like playing the Karina Control deck. This is a deck that I absolutely am most comfortable with, have played the most games with on the ladder, have had the most success with, both in win rate and just being comfortable in playing the matches and know all the matchups, because that's a very important thing, is knowing matchups, and especially if you have open deck list and you know everything to play around. If you know the matchup too, you're going to have a serious edge in your tournament match. So I want to play Karina Control. So that means I have Shadow Isles and I have PNZ over with. What does that mean? Well, there's a lot of decks that I can't play. Okay, if you look at the tier list for this week, currently this changes pretty often, but if you look at all the S tier, or what's qualified as S tier, I don't know what the metric is, but all the S tier decks have PNZ in them. So that means we can't play any combinations like this. So if you're looking for a quick and easy way to do it, we're on Karina Control. You have 5 other regions that you can mess with. So you just look at everything that doesn't have PNZ in it. Okay, we play deep monsters. Can we? Nope. Shadow Isles. We're playing Shadow Isles too. That's off. We do this Lux Karma thing. We can also have this this Scout stack. Okay, that'd be a good pairing with the Karina Control deck. We could even play Elusives. These are our options, right? Because if we do the Karina Control. Now, we could actually, this is like a perfect setup. If we just go straight up down the list, which could be a good indicator of what you might expect to see in a tournament. When I prepare for tournaments, this is another thing I do, is look at the metagame and see what people are going to play. If they're going to come with a Karina deck, it's very likely that they'll come with like a Lux Karma and maybe a Swain TF, because they have Noxian and Bajwater still left after that. And you just go straight down the list right there, and it's like, okay, well, that could be a comp that people would play. But maybe you're like, I really like this Anivia Rekindler deck. This is a whole other thing. And whenever we factor it in, like, if you could, sometimes you have to go by your card pool, but if you had, I'm just giving an example of if you had access to all the cards in the game, some people will only be able to build what they can do. I've actually started some content on an FTP account that I'm doing, and at this point in time, I can field a tournament comp, but it's basically Kinko Elusives and Burn, because those are like the cheapest decks you can build FTP. And then like a budget Demacia deck. But that's kind of like hacks, because if you're playing Demacia or like a single region deck, then it gives you so much more flexibility with what the rest of your decks can be. So that eases the tension. Especially if those are like good standby decks that are single region. I'm talking about maybe the Shadow Isles, like Endure Spiders literally plays what, like 3 Endures in it, because if they're playing miss rates, if you're playing like a miss rate deck, of any kind, then it's like heavy Shadow Isles. Or if you're Demacia and you're Bannerman, then it's heavy Demacia. That doesn't even have to dip into another faction. Like, you could do the mono Shadow Isles if you want. Obviously, Endure is better, but Freljord, I feel, is kind of like, you know, one of the weaker factions anyway. Not must play. I would say at this point in the meta, which at this point in the meta, I would say like Freljord's probably the weakest, and the must plays are like Ionia, Piltover, Shadow Isles, Demacia, and Bajwater. That's the Ionia. Yeah, I guess everything but Freljord. Like, that's like the easiest one you could throw out. Now the problem that I have is, and this might be a problem for you whenever you're trying to come up with a tournament comp, is that this tournament could be a long tournament. You'd be playing 6 rounds, 8 rounds, or even possibly you make it to top cut. You could be playing. I mean, I got second in one of these things, and I think I played like 10 rounds, something crazy. It was like 8 rounds of Swiss, and then it was top 32. So I ended up playing, you know, 14 rounds. You better be playing something that you enjoy if you're going to be spending that much time, because that's going to make your headspace better for tournament. But that's like some coaching stuff. I do some coaching. Feel free to contact me in the DMs if you're looking for any kind of ways to improve your game. I have a lot of experience in coaching. I come from a professional Magic Gathering background, so I'm good at dealing with people. And that's one thing that I always say. So maybe you just want to play that because it's fun. I'm playing in a tournament. It's going to be fun. Nothing wrong with that. You know, I'm more of a competitive player, but I always factor in the fun factor because I know what it does to my psyche whenever I'm playing in long tournaments, being able to keep it going. So, personally, I like playing the deep deck. The deck is fun to me. It's actually good, too. I just hit matches with the other day. Make sure you check out my video. The deep deck, I like this deck. So, you Maokai Nautilus. If we're using that, we just work around that. Okay, well, we want to identify the weaknesses of the deep deck. Okay, so if you look at this, I don't think that the deep deck is good against burn. I don't think it's good. You can tune your list to be better against burn, but it's going to make your deck function a lot worse in the fair matches. When you start cutting a lot of jettisons and stuff for Vile Feast, and or you know, you're full on with Whale and Grasp, then your deck is just a little slower overall. You know, at hitting deep, and that's not a good thing for this deck in a general sense. So, what if we decided to play the deep monster deck in its best form and say we're not going to have a bad matchup? Burn. Burns is the worst matchup for this. I've identified it. Okay, if we're going to ban burn, let's find another deck that has a really bad burn matchup. And then what you do is you take, or if you find another deck that's kind of, because like sometimes it won't have a really bad burn matchup, but it won't be very favorable, or it won't be positive, or maybe it's 50-50. And you look at that and you pair that with this, and then the little hedges you make in your deck build of the second deck that favor burn can now be favored to more mid-range or control because you're planning on ban and burn anyway. So, you know, oftentimes you see cards and lists that are just can be swapped out. Like if you look at this Lux Karma deck, you see these health potions. Okay, health potions, you know, fun and all. It's cheap. You can play it. Radiant Guardian ×3. I mean, do you really want 3 Radiant Guardians in this deck? You know, you probably get away with not playing 3 Radiant Guardians in your deck if you know you're never going to play against Burn, right? Health pot too. So you can make some different things. Maybe we'll get a second Unyielding Spirit in here because of how good it is in XYZ matchups. Or ban and burn. So that's the idea there. So when we move into our second deck, generally, you're going to, you know, take your number 1 deck that you're most comfortable with, and then find out what its weakest link is, and then find another deck that goes 50-50 or worse against that same deck with the intention of banning that deck throughout the whole deal. Then you grab that deck. Boom. Okay, we're banning burn, or we're banning elusives. There was like one tournament, the tournament I did well in, I banned Ionia the whole time because I made all 3 of my decks bad against Will of Ionia and Deny. I was like, those cards that mess up these mid-range decks I was playing, I'm like, I'm just not gonna play against them all day. How about that? And that's the coolest thing about the Korea format. And yeah, so then once you figure that out, so like we're over here with the Deep Monsters deck to use the example we were using before. Okay, another deck that I think is not that the best against burn, I would say Ezreal Karma. I think it's a very powerful deck, Ezreal Karma. You know, we'll go ahead and play that one. Ezreal Karma right here. And then you'll see in this list, there's Eye of the Dragon, but you know, there's not gonna be anything crazy whenever it comes to overcome the burn matchup. Like we're not gonna play health pot in this deck. We're not gonna play. It's just all. I mean, they usually don't play health pot in this deck, but we're not gonna play a Spirit's Refuge, one of things like that because we know we're gonna be banning burn. And then this deck can go maybe 50-50 or worse with it. Boom, we're gonna ban it. Let's go. That way we have less, you know, negative matchups basically. And like Ezreal Karma is gonna be doing the same thing as the deep deck and having this really good late game. So they can't ban that out of our comp now, where we have this enlightened win con or this Ezreal flip, and you could do it with Heimer and Karma at the same time. Heimer could be more aggressive earlier compared to the Karma Ezreal, but you get the point. Basically, the idea is that the second deck is going to complement the first deck, and then it makes one strategy completely unbannable. So that way you'll be guaranteed to get a win against a comp that has two decks that fail against super late game strategies. So now we got like a good setup there. And then you just kind of are left with the pieces at the end. Because once we decided that we wanted to play Ezreal Karma paired with our deep monsters, that only leaves Demacia, Freljord, and Noxus for us to go with. Well, then you just got to find a deck. So if we're looking, we go down Demacia, nope, Bow's Water. And you can just pick one off this list right here. And guess what? If there isn't one on this list, you can just make a new one. You can build a deck. I've done this before, and then that's how I discovered the Yeti deck. So we might decide to go like Freljord Noxus and try and do some Yeti thing. Maybe we want to try out the Sejuani Swain. I mean, these are newer cards, super untested right now. You know, they've only been out for a couple weeks. So maybe I would play test this and try it out. And I think it's nice to have a wild card in your third spot, especially because some opponents might ban it just because, well, they might not ban it. If it turns out that it's good, they might not ban it because the other two decks you have are like tried and true decks for the most part. Where, you know, if you come with something wild that people haven't seen that much of, not only do you have an advantage of they might not know how to play against you, you'll also have the advantage it's going to throw off their whole banning process. The range, throw them a little surprise basically. So in this spot, you know, I would maybe consider doing like a Swain Juani or kick it old school and play like Ash's Challengers. Either way, Freljord would probably pair with Noxus. You could do maybe Freljord with Demacia if you want to do. If you don't, you know, if you're like an edge boy like me and you don't want to play, you know, Mono Demacia Bannerman, something like that, then you can just maybe throw in some Garen paired up with the Ash and have some like Garen Ash action happening, or you could just be like, you know what, smite this world that is Mono Demacia in tournaments, making everybody's deck instructions easy. We're going to go ahead and wild it out with some Freljord Noxus. Just come with the Ash's Challengers on them. And the Ash's Challengers is a nice pick there because it's good against aggro. And it can win a game against burn. So you actually get in spots where it was the most banned deck in the tournament I played recently when I thought it was the worst deck in my whole lineup. But it fits this comp nice because it looks like the other two decks just go way over. And so if they have burn in the lineup, they might not be aware of the fact that you're just going to ban the burn deck. And they think they might get a free win off that burn deck if they leave you with two over-the-top decks. And then you get paired against a mid-range and a slower aggressive deck than burn, or easier to interact with, or easier to race aggressive deck. And then they end up with the banned burn deck, and you just got the tops on them, pretty much. So that's a good way to... I think that's a good example of building a deck. But the most important thing is that you find a deck that you like to play, then you work into the next thing, and understand the weaknesses of each deck, and see where you can make all the weaknesses the same. Or at least two of the decks, because then you end up getting paired up against something that's like triple aggro. So if all three of your decks just suck against aggro, you can't ban that. See, the example I just used speaks more to specifically burn as an aggressive deck, where you're not going to have trouble with other aggressive decks as bad as you're going to have it on burn. You might be still coin flipping with those aggro decks. So a triple aggro comp will still have you at 50-50 twice. Maybe better. But, you're not going to get run over, basically, is the idea. So, you focus on that. You come two, and then maybe you come with the middle of the road deck here. You could also, come with a completely aggressive strategy here. depends on what you're comfortable with. Now, personally, and that's why I said I like the deep monster deck, and I like the Edge of Karma. So that works out. But this was like a non-negotiable for me, this deep monsters. Which left me open to a lot of things. I could do like the Lux Karma. And then that leaves me with the Freljord, Noxious, and Piltover. So you do Noxious Piltover, you can play Burn with that. Or you could do like, Ezreal Draven if you want to do something like that. You still want to play as. You do Vi. There's a lot of decks out there, basically. The options are kind of, wide open when you are only locked in on definitely wanting to play one singular deck. If your two decks that you play are separate, then, so take that in consideration when you're grinding on ladder and you're trying things out. And hopefully this is a good guide. If you have any questions about how to, build this, if you have any questions about building decks, then just, if you have any more questions or you feel like I left anything out when it comes to building a team comp for a tournament, feel free to leave the comments down below. I'll respond to every comment, and I definitely enjoy the feedback. We could all learn together. And thanks for tuning in to my video. I hope you enjoyed it. One love, good vibes. I'll catch you on the next one. Come out to my live stream, link down below. Come with the song requests. We have a good time over there. I'll see you later. One love, good vibes.